Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Google Sheets Sync. In this week's training, I'm going to show you how you can create your own sync to Google Sheets and Google Sheets back into Excel without any Excel add-ins. It's going to be an amazing training. I can't wait, so let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining me today. I've got a ton to cover. However, it is not a lot of code. It is going to be relatively simple training. It's going to be some brand new, unique third-party software, which we're going to use, which is free to try, free to use. And so we've got a lot to go over. This week, I want to make sure that you do get subscribed because I create these trainings each and every Tuesday for you, absolutely free, always with a free download. That'll be in the link in the description there using your Facebook or email. So also make sure you subscribe and click that notification icon bell. That'll alert you to that. I want to really make you successful with Excel. That's why I create these trainings, not just to teach you Excel, but to see you get successful with Excel, reaching your dreams and goals. The best way to do that is with these videos and trainings. If you do like these, a great way to support us will be to purchase the Excel 150 workbook zip pack. Those are 150 of my best workbooks. I've got it right now for just $56. That's only 37 cents per workbook. It's a great deal. It includes a complete library, so you can single click to access any single workbook or single click to access the associated training video that was with that. So it's a great investment. Hundreds of people are really enjoying that, so I think you will too. All right, let's get started right away. So basically what I want to do, I've got a completely blank workbook. There's no code, nothing on here other than titling the sheets and making a macro enabled XLSM workbook. That's it. That's all I have, nothing. This one we're going to focus on nothing pretty, no formatting, no fonts, nothing. We're just going to keep it real basic in the workbook because I want to focus on the core, and that is getting data from Excel into Google Sheets and from Google Sheets back into Excel. Once you learn this training, once we go over, once I show you this technique, you can use it for anything. In fact, it'll be great to use Google Sheets as a database because it syncs almost immediately both directions, and it's not a lot of code to write, so I really want to get started. So we're going to jump right into it. The first thing we want to do is let Google Sheets know when we make a change. So when I make a change in any cell here, we've got to tell Google Sheets. Now we're going to use a third party. It's hard to get authentication for Google, but there's so many great third-party products that allow us to authenticate Google. So we're going to do that. So what we want to do is we want to write a little bit of code and send information to Google Sheets or to a third party, and that third party is going to send it to Google Sheets for us. Then we're going to bring it back. So we're going to go over every single step from the start. So the first thing what we want to do is we want to change event. That means when we make a change to any cell, let's say on, let's just say on this sheet or any sheet, I want that change to be sent basically to that third party and from that third party into Google. So we're going to go over that right now. So how do we do that? Well, that is a change event. It's called Worksheet Change Event. We can get that into VBA. If you don't have the Developers tab here to get into VBA, you can just go into the options and then just make sure you select the Customize ribbon and make sure Developers is selected there. You can also use a shortcut Alt F11 or use Visual Basic. What we're going to be doing is we're going to focus on the code on sheet. So we're going to start writing some code right on the sheet. Now what we want to do is we want something to happen when we make a change to the sheet. So that's change event. So when you go in here in Worksheet, and then what you want to look at is not selection change, but Worksheet change event. You're looking for change. So this is what I want to do. I want to write some code here so that when we make a change, something happens. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, I'm going to write if not. So what that's going to do is I'm going to using auto hotkey. I covered that last week. If you want to see last week's training, auto hotkey to help me automate my typing. That's a great. You can check that out. Okay, so what I want to do is let's just go over from A1 all the way to, let's just use Z100. Okay, you can create your range, any range. It really doesn't matter. Just make sure it's big enough to cover everything. You could cover the entire sheet, of course. Then we want to do something. So if the user makes a change, then I want to do something. What do I want to do? Well, the first thing I want to do is dimension some information. We're going to be sending some information to Google. So we need to dimension, we need to make a call, an HTTP call, and send that information, making a post there. So how do we do that? So the best way to do that, actually we're going to use patch here. The best way to do that is dimension an object. So we're going to dimension the object HTTP as an object. That's going to be late binding, meaning we're just defining that as an object as of now, and later on in the code we will define them more. So that we need that as an object, and we also want to dimension a bunch of strings because I need to know the sheet name, I need to know the row number and the column and all that. So let's dimension also the URL. We're going to be sending something to that, and it's going to be in the form of a URL. So dim URL as a string, and also in the format we're going to be setting it as a JSON format. So let's dimension JSON as a string. I also need to know the column letter. What is the column, right? Is it column A, B, or C? So we're going to dimension that as a string. So column letter as string. And what else? I want to know the cell value. What is the value? What is the text inside the cell that was changed? That's going to be a string as well, regardless of whether it's a number or anything. It's going to be considered a string at this point. Cell value as a string. A few more we need to know the sheet name. What sheet name are we sending it from? That's important. Sheet name as a string. Okay, so we have that. What else? And now I want to know the row number that we're sending it from. Dimension the row number as long. Okay, that's it for the dimension. Let's go ahead and determine the column letter. Now the target, that's the change that was made. That's the cell. So target address would be the cell address and so on and so forth. So let's get that column letter. So the column letter, we're going to use split for that. Equals split. Basically what I want to do is I want to get the address and then I want to split it, and I just want to extract only the column letter A, B, C, whatever. So split is what? Is the cells, and it's one. We can use any row. It doesn't really matter, any row, because we just want to determine the column. And so what is the column? It's the target.column. Now the target column is a number. If I wanted to keep the number, that would be fine. I would just use that number, but I want the letter. So I want to get the address of that. So that's going to get us the address. A1 including the $sign, so it's going to be absolute. So it's going to be absolute, and the cell's address. So what else do I need? So what I want is we need the delimiter. What is the delimiter? I'm going to use the $sign because since it's absolute, we're going to use the $sign there. And also in this case, I want one, just one in this case. So that is going to get us our column letter. Great. What about the row number? That's a lot easier. Row number is going to be equal, because it's a number, target.row. Okay, that's going to get us a row number. Let's write in this row number. And then I'm going to write the column letter here. Okay, so we know what's going on there. So the sheet name is going to be equal to just the name. That's easy. Okay, so now what we want to do, what I want to do is I also want to define the cell value. What is the cell value? The cell value is equal to the target value. That's the text that the user just made the change, whatever change was named. So let's put this sheet name and then the cell value. Obviously that's kind of common sense there. Okay, so what else? So now what we're going to do is I want to set the object. Remember, we've only defined it here as an object here, so we really want to set it. So let's go ahead and set that object. I want to create an object, so the set is going to equal the object. HTTP is going to equal, we're creating an object. What kind of object are we creating? Well, I want to create a server HTTP request. So let's type that in. It's going to be MSXML2. That's the type. MSXML2.server XML HTTP. Okay, that's the request that we want to make. So create object MSXML2.server XML HTTP. And now that we've defined that, what we want to do is I want to set the URL. So we're going to set the URL is going to be equal to, now I'm just not going to put it in right away. I'm just going to put in some brackets. I'm going to put that URL in just a moment. We have to get that URL from somewhere. So we'll focus on getting that URL, and then we're going to put the question mark in there. So the URL will go in place of that in just a moment. So what else do we need? Now I need I want to put all the information that we just have. I want to put the sheet name, the row number, the cell value, and everything else in there. So let's do that right now. Let's add that in there. So what's the first thing? Let's put in the sheet name. We can put any words in here. Sheet name equals, and right, so this is the name. So this is the name that we're assigning, and this is the variable. This is the actual data, the actual sheet name, which is here, sheet name. Okay, so we have that, and what else? We need to add more. We need to add column letters. So let's do that right now. The column we can put in and sign, right, because it's joined. That's the next column equals, and quotation marks, and then we want to put the variable. So column letter in this case. Okay, that's the variable that contains our actual column letter. And what else? And then another and sign. We have to do more. And this time I want the row number. I want to put the row number in here because we also need the column, then the row, and row number equals, in quotation, and again, now the variable, row number. Okay, so now the variable. And then we need one more, which is the variable. So and again, then again, and again, and inside the quotation marks. And then we're going to call this cell value equals quotation marks and again cell value. Okay, that's it. That's all we have to do. That builds our URL. So the only other thing that we need to do shortly once we obtain that URL is paste it in here and replace this. So this won't stay here. We're going to replace it, but we have to get that URL from somewhere, and I'm going to go over that, but we need to do everything in order. Okay, so now that we've built the URL, we need to send that. We need to send that information to us. So let's do that. So we're going to focus on the object HTTP dot. I want to open it, and this time open it, and I want to write in the patch. That's what the type. We're going to use a patch, and then URL, and then false. Okay. Now what we want to do is we've built that up, and now let's go ahead and set the request header. So the object HTTP dot set request header, and what is it? It's going to be content type. Content type. That's the type of content that we're setting. And then it's going to be what type of send? It's going to application JSON. So that's the type that we're sending. Okay. And then one more, then we actually need to send it. So that just builds it up, then we send it. So the object HTTP dot send, and then of course the send type is again in parentheses JSON. And now what that's going to do is to send the information. That's it. That's all we have to type in. All we need to do is build that URL, and that's what we're going to focus on right now. Okay, so let's just go over this real quick because I want to double check my typing as well. Dimension the object, HTTP as an object. We're going to bind it a little bit later. Dimension the URL is string, JSON is string, the column letter is string, cell value, and the sheet name is all strings. The row number is long. That's the only long variable we have. Column letter, we're going to split that. We're going to take the cell address, the absolute cell address, break it down, and determine just the first part of it, which is the A or whatever column that was selected. That's going to extract our column letter from the cell address. The row number is pretty simple. It's the row number. The sheet name is the name of the sheet. Cell value is the target value. So everything's pretty straightforward here. Again, we're going to create this object. Now we're ready to create it, and we're going to bind it now to MS XML. We went over that 3 times. URL, we're going to build it. We just need to paste in that. That's all we need to do. We're going to get that now. Patch URL is false. Object HB send request, the header, content type, application JSON, send JSON. Okay, that's all the code we need. That's it to send everything to Google. But now what we do is we need to build this URL. Where are we going to get that URL? Well, I've discovered a really, really cool Zapier alternative. You know, I found some obstacles in Zapier, especially with the free version. We need multiple steps, and Zapier, the free version, only allows 2 steps. So I found a very, very cool alternative, and we're going to call it. It's called Integromat. It's hard to pronounce for me. Integromat, I guess that's how you call it. And so what this does is pretty similar to Zapier, but I really like it. It's got a really nice UI. It's got a larger free service, meaning that you can do more with the free version before it goes into the pricing. So there's a lot. Like let's go into the pricing just so you can kind of see it right now. So the free version, which we're using, allows 1,000 operations. Zapier allows 100 megabytes of data transfer. That's not a minimum interval is 15 minutes. That's not going to be an issue for us. The only issue would be 1,000, but we're going to cover that plenty. So it's really amazing. So what I've already signed up, just sign in. I'm going to sign in right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and sign in. So you'll want to sign up. You can sign up using anything. And now we have so we can get out of the pricing. We're going to go to the main screen here. Okay, and what we want to do is, like in Zapier, you want to create scenarios, or they call them scripts, or whatever you want to call them. So we're going to create a scenario. Basically, what I want to do is we're going to start out with a webhook. Now we've used those before, and that's just what we've built in Excel. This is called a webhook. The only difference is we don't have the hook yet. We're going to get that webhook directly from Integromat. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So once we do that, we're going to create a brand new scenario. So I'm going to click create. So we're into the home. there's nothing in our dashboard now. I don't have any scripts created. They'll be here. This is just from some tests that I ran. So we can create a new scenario. That's what you want to do. Once you get all signed in, create a new scenario. And you'll have to connect two things. You'll have to connect Dropbox. Of course, you want to make sure you have a Dropbox account. We're going to use Dropbox for a few different versions. So Dropbox is great. But right now what I want to do is I basically want to send from Webhook to Dropbox. Is going to help us bring the information back from Google Sheets to Excel. So you want that to make sure you have a Dropbox account. Of course, you want to have a Google Sheets account. Google, make sure you have Google Docs account. That's important. Okay, so let's do it. So what are the things that we need for this? All I need is two things for this. I need Webhook. So I'm going to type in Webhook, and that's right here. I'm going to check that. And I need one more thing. What else do I need? I need to have a Google Sheets. Google Sheets. So we need that. So Google Sheets. So I'm going to select that. So we have those two selected. That's all we need for this. That's for sending from Excel to Google Sheets. So that's all we need. So we're going to continue. Now in the next steps, in this step, what we're going to do is we're now going to build that what they call scenario. So when you select Google Sheets, it's going to ask you to sign up. It's going to create a pop-up, and you're going to have to link your own Google account with that. I've already done that, but that's the step that you'll need to take. So here's what I want to do. The first thing what I want to do is I want to do a webhook. That's the first step, because from Excel, it's going to listen for a webhook. So we're going to create a webhook, and we want triggers when the webhook receives data. So that's what we're going to focus on. Click on there, and let's give it a name, okay? We'll just call it Excel Sync, okay? Any name is fine. We're going to save that, and as soon as we save it, we're going to get this link right here. That's the link we're looking for. All I need to do is copy that to the clipboard, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go in, and you see where this URL is? I'm going to take out, including the brackets, and I'm going to paste it right in here. Okay, and then of course we got to save our work. Let's go ahead and save it. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this code. Now the way this code runs is any change. All I need to do is make a change to any cell between A1 and Z100. So let's just do that on, let's just say A1 test. I'm going to run test. Okay, now theoretically that should have run the hook. I didn't see any bugs, so that means it ran. So let's go back into integral now, and we're going to check it. Notice it says successfully determined. That means it read the hook. So we're going to click. That means yes, everything worked good. That means the information got sent. So let's click OK. And now what we want to do is I want to add Google Sheets. So we're going to click Add, and I'm going to click Google Sheets here. And what I want to do, I want to update a cell. Update a cell is what we're focused on. So let's click Update the cell. Now what it's going to do is going to pull all that information in. So what we're going to do is we're going to Excel test. We can just add a new name. Let's just call it Sync to Sheets. That's fine. Any name is fine. Continue. So again, let's go ahead, and now it's going to want to know, but now it's looking for a sheet. So what I need to do is create a brand new sheet. So let's do that. I'm going to go into my sheet, and I'm going to create a brand new sheet into Google Sheets, and then we're going to call it, it's called Excel Google Sync. Okay, that's fine. That's enough for a title. Okay, so that's all I need to do. So now what we're going to do, it's waiting for this. Let's go back into that pop-up, because it's going to need to know which account. I'm using this account. Okay, so it's going to set up, it's going to allow us. So now I'm just going to click allow. That's going to allow it, make sure that it's now it's found it. So now it's going to load all the spreadsheets in. Now we need to find the spreadsheet we just created. So let's scroll down here, and we're looking for it's in Excel Google Sync. That's the one I'm looking for. That's the sheet I just created. So what is the sheet? Now the sheet's dynamic, right? Because we just want to make sure that, notice that our sheet name is sheet 1. We're just going to focus on sheet 1. The name, it's important. The name of this Excel Google sheet must be the name of this same Excel sheet. Okay, that's really important, because we're going to use dynamic. Make sure your sheets are the same. So ours are the same. So that's fine. Okay, so next up, what do we need to do? Next up, let's go back into here and set that as dynamic. So what is the sheet? It is, in this case, I want to map it, right? So what do I want to map it to? This. Notice these 4 things. Those are the same 4 things that came in from our webhook. Did you notice that? Look, those are the same names. Sheet name, column letter, right? And let's bring this, we don't need this here. Column letter, row number, and cell value. So that means all the information was sent there. So those are the same information. That's why we ran this code first, so that it could get all the information. Now all we need to do is map it. So the sheet name, we're just going to drag this over. Sheet name. What is the cell? The cell is going to be equal to what? 2 things, the column and the row. The column and the row, right? Column and the row. So that's the cell. And what is the value? Super simple, right? Cell value. Okay, that's it. That's all I need to do, and click OK. That's it. So now we're good. Now let's run this once, and we're going to run it. Now let's make a change, and as soon as we make that change, let's go ahead and test 2, and let's take a look at that, and let's go back into there. And I'm going to show both of these things. One issue, let's take a look at sheet 1B1. There's a space. There should not be a space. That was a mistake that I made. So all we need to do is just click here. It's going to load it. All we need to do is we just can't have a space between these. It added the space automatically, but we really don't want a space, right? Column, letter. Okay, click OK. And now we're good, I think. Let's just take a look. Go back here. Run once again. Let's make sure that test is again. Let's go ahead and make the change in Excel. Call this, let's go here, test 3, and let's just take a look at that now, because I think we certainly didn't need that space. Okay, that looks good. The request was accepted. Waiting for data. Take a look in here. Test 3. Awesome. Now we're syncing. Now let me shrink this down a little bit. I want you to be able to see both. I'm going to move this over here, and now let's take a look, and I'm going to scroll this up here. I'm going to bring this over here. Now we can see it. Okay. That worked out really well. So before we do that, now it's just a run once. So we have to actually make it run all the time. So we're good. I want it exactly as, I don't need any changes, so we can zoom that out. So let's turn it on, right? Let's turn it on. Actually, I need to bring out this screen a little bit more here. What I want to do is turn it on. So now it's off and run and activate. So now we're going to activate it. So now it's running. Now if we go into our scenarios here, we can see that it's on. Okay, so go back into Excel. Now let's go ahead, and now what we're going to do is just, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this, and make sure that those updates come. Now it came automatically to Google. You see that? Now let's just run a test. Type in hello, boom. Now you can see, comes right, awesome. See how easy that is? Now let's write something else. Now I want any change that I make in Google Sheets, I want it to come back to Excel. We're going to use the same type of integration, but a little bit different. And this one's going to involve just a little bit of code and Dropbox. So first thing what I want to do is I want to create a brand new scenario here. And what I want to do is I want to take it this time from Google Sheets and I want to put it into Dropbox. And then I want to have my application, Excel, I want to write a little bit of code that's going to check a specific folder, see if there's any changes in that folder, take that, every cell change that we make is going to go into that folder, and then I'm going to have it constantly look in that folder. If there's been any change, I want to update that folder with the changes and put that in here. I'm going to put it in small text files. So basically, any change that I make here in Google Sheets, I want it to send to Dropbox in a small text file. And I'm going to use, again, I want to use the sheet name and I want to use the cell address as the text file name. Why do I want to do that? Why do I want to use the same name? Because this way, any change I make again to the same cell on the same sheet, I want her to replace that text file, automatically replace. So how do we do that? Again, let's expand this and let's create another new scenario. So I'm going to create a new scenario here. And this time we're going to focus on Google Sheets. So let's create that. And again, let's search for Google Sheets and click that. And this time we're going to use Dropbox to help us. So let's also find Dropbox. And it's right here. Okay, so just those two. Those are the only two that we're going to use. Now we're going to continue. And so what's the first step? The first step is Google Sheets. What do I want to do? I want to watch changes. I'm going to look for triggers when a cell is updated. Watch only changes made in Google Sheets app. Notice, Sheets add-on required. Sheets add-on required. Okay, that's a little add-on for Google Sheets. Simple, free, quick, no worries. We got that covered. So I'm going to click that. That's the first thing we want to do. Now, I want to write a webhook. This is a webhook. So what is it? Let's create a webhook on this, and we'll call it sync to Excel. Okay, we're syncing to any name is fine, it doesn't matter. Now it's going to create a webhook. Now again, let's copy this address to the clipboard. Now we're going to go into Google Sheets, and I actually have this add-on before, but notice it says it's Intermat, but all you have to do is click Get Add-ons, right, and type in the words Integromat. Integromat. So you just type in Integromat right here. Click that, I already have it, and then all you do, notice it's installed already for me, but for you, you'll just install it. So good, all you need to do is click here to install it. Okay, so now that we're done, so let's close that out so you have it. Then what you want to do is go into add-ons, Integromats, click on the settings, and it's going to pop out this little side panel here. All you need to do is that URL that you pasted, just going to paste that right in here, Integromat. So then we're going to save that. Okay, saving successfully. Okay, great, so let's just write in another test. right here. Let's call it test 4. Okay, so what that's going to do is going to trigger that automatically. Now when we go back into it, we can click OK, and then we're going to click add another rule. So let's click add. What I want to do is I want to add Dropbox. So we're going to click Dropbox. Now what do I want to do? I want to create a text file, a small text file, create overwrite. Now overwrite's important because if they make the same change to the same sheet, the same cells, we do want it overwritten. So I'm going to click on that. Now what do I want to do? I want to select create. In this case, I want to overwrite in case it's not. And I want to select a path. I want to do a map a file path. And what is that path? Now we have all this information that it got from Google Sheets, so that's part of it. What do we want? Well, the first thing, I want the sheet name. I want to put that in here. And this is the file path. So this is the name. So we want the sheet name. Then I'm going to put a dash, and then I'm going to put the A1 notation. That, of course, is the actual range. So for example, it'll be A1, for example. So then I want to do .txt. That is the file name. So the file name is going to be whatever the sheet name is, and then the dash, and then whatever the range that they've selected, A1, B1, C3, or whatever it is, text. So this is the name of our file. Now what's in our file? All I want to do is put what's in our file is the value. So I'm going to drag that over here. The value, sheet name, dash, range. So that's it. Click OK. That's all I need to do. Click OK. And now let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now our Dropbox is connected, notice, but you'll have to connect yours. It'll just give you a pop-up and it'll connect and just say OK on that. Okay, so let's just take a quick look now. Now let's write in test 5, and I want to write in that. Now let's going to take a look at that. So where is it going to be mapped? But now I want it mapped to single. There's one more step that I actually forgot to do. I created a specific folder. I want to do it in a specific folder. Let's go back into the Dropbox here and I want to map it to a specific folder because it's easier. So let's write in that, just as they say. And then I've created another folder. Let's take a look here. I've created a folder in my Dropbox specific for this, so that's going to help us out. And it's called Excel Sync, So this is what I want. All I need is Excel Sync. So we're going to paste that in here. I'm just going to paste it right in here, Excel Sync. That's the one that I want. It's actually a /. That's what I want. Make sure the slashes are right. We're looking at /, not backslashes, okay? Excel Sync the sheet name. So that's where I want it to go. And now click OK. Okay, that's important step. Okay, so that's it. So now we're good to go. Bring it back down here and click run once. So we're just going to run it once to check a look at it. Then actually now we can make another test 6 here. And now go back into here. Well, let's watch it. Let's see what's going on. Perfect. So you see 1 and 1. Now if we take a look at that, we'll see everything else. Well, let's go to Google Sheets first, see what that is. So we have the output, the spreadsheet, the sheet name, sheet 1, A1, notation D2, value test 6. Notice that? Okay. This is the range is D2, the test is 6. That's the way I want. That looks good. What about this part? Let's take a look at what happened here. Bundle, content, file path, Excel Sync, sheet 1, D2. That's what I want. It's created, the file path is right. We're overwriting it, we're mapping it. The path is sheet 1, D2 text. Looks good. The content, everything looks good. Now let's take a look inside our Dropbox, and we see this little text file here. If we open it up, it's going to be exactly the contents. Perfect. So notice how it sent it to our Dropbox. Now all we need to do is tell Excel, look at sheet 1, D2, and whatever's put test 6 inside it. That's it. That's all I need to do. So let's go ahead and write that code. Everything looks good. I'm going to turn this on, run it immediately, activate that. Now we have our 2 scenarios. Double check them. They're both on. They're both running. We're done with Internet. Everything else is based in Excel. So let's go ahead and open Excel and just write a little bit of code that's going to help us out. So we'll create a module for that. Insert, module, and then we'll give it a name in the properties, and we'll just call it Sync from Google Sheets. Okay, now we'll create a sub. Close this out. Sub Sync from Google. Okay, so now all we know, we need to dimension a few things because we need to pull it from a Dropbox, place it inside our whatever sheet and whatever cell, and then what we need to do is delete the file. So we're going to dimension the file name as a string, and then the folder path as a string, and the file path, I don't even know the file path, the full file path as string. A cell value is going to also be a string, cell value as string. Okay, and what else? I also need the cell address, that's important. Cell ADD as string, and the sheet name. the sheet name as string. Okay, good. Now we're going to set up, let's set the folder path. I want to set that already. Folder path is going to be equal to, okay, and so here's my folder. Here's my folder. I'm just going to copy that path, and I'm going to put it right in here. And then quotation marks. So we're going to make sure you put the last backslash. Okay, that's important. And then there we go. Then we go. Now we've got the folder path. Now let's get the file name. The file name, we need to set that. It's going to be nothing initially. It's going to be the directory of the folder path, and it could be any particular file that ends in txt, and asterisk, because we're looking for anything, the wildcard asterisk .txt, because we're going to look for anything like that. Okay, so that's the directory. Now what we want to do is I want to write a loop, because I want to do this for every single file that matches the txt in that specific folder. So how do we do that? Do while the length of the file name is greater than 0, and that's the start of the loop. Okay, so inside that loop we're going to check. So the file path is equal to the folder path and the file name. Okay, that's the full file path. So what we want to do is we want to open it, extract the value, and then close it. So we can do that with just this line of code. Open file path for input as number 1. Just the one line. That's all I need to know, because there's just one line in it. So line input, it's going to be one line of code. Input number 1. We're going to assign that called the cell value. That's going to be the only line that exists, and then we're done. So we've assigned that cell value to the line input cell value, and now we just need to close it. So we're closing number 1. That's it. That's all we need to do. The rest, now let's define the sheet name. Remember, what is the sheet name, right? Here is our file here. Our sheet is sheet 1. But what I need to do is notice that this sheet 1 is separated by a dash. So I need to extract from the sheet name, I need to pull the sheet name out of that, and I need to pull the sheet cell reference D2, the cell address D2 out of that. So let's do that. Let's parse that. Let's extract that information from the name of the file. We can do that with just a few lines of code. So let's do that. The sheet name is going to be equal, right? I want the left of that. Whatever's on the left, we're going to use left. The file name, then all we need to do is determine how many characters. We're going to use instring to determine how many characters of the file name. And what are we looking for? I'm looking for that dash. That's the dash. So I want to the left of whatever's that. And then I want to subtract 1 because I don't want to include the dash. That's it. That's going to assign us, that's going to get us our sheet name. Now we have the sheet name, left of the file name, right? You want the left portion of that entire file. How many characters we want? We want to know wherever this dash is found, and we want to exclude the dash. So we're subtracting 1. That's going to get us our sheet name. What about the cell address? The cell address is going to be equal. We're going to use the mid function, the mid, because it's in the middle. We got the txt on the end. We got the sheet name on the left, so we want the mid function. So we're going to use that. The mid of the file name, in this case, is going to be, we're going to use instring again, instring file name. We're looking for that dash here. So once we found the dash, this time we're going to add 1, right? Because I want to whatever's right of the dash, on the right side of the dash. So this time, not to the left, the right, comma. Okay, so that is our first point position, but what is our last point position? We're going to use instring. Again, this time instring file name. Again, we're going to look, this time I want to look for the period, right? In this case, we could use instring reversed here too. So let's go ahead. We want the period, but we're never going to have a period in the file name, so it doesn't matter. If you did, you would have to use instring reverse. File name, and this time we're going to look for the period here. Okay, and then subtracting, well, again, we're going to look for the dash, extracting whatever's in the dash. So in this case, we're going to extract whatever's here. So in this case, we're going to extract the same thing right here, instring file name, but this time it's going to be -1. So subtract the instring, again, wherever this is found, -1, because we don't want to exclude that. Okay, so that's it. Let's go over that again. The cell address, we're looking for the midway point between the left position of the dash, right? The left position, move it over to the right, one character to the right of the dash, all the way until wherever this point is found, 1 to the left of that, right? 1 to the left of that, subtracting that. That's going to get us our cell address. Basically, again, it's going to extract that D2 from this. So we're getting the mid. We're finding this point, we're moving over to the right. We're finding the point of this decimal and we're moving over to the left. That's going to get us our D2. That's all I want to do is extract that D2. Okay, so once we have the cell address, it's easy. Now what we want to do is we just need to make the update to the cell. This workbook dot sheets sheet name dot range. And what is the cell address? Cell address, we know the cell address, dot value is equal to what? It's equal to the cell value. That's it. Now we're done. Now what we want to do, since we just replaced it, we can then remove that text file. We don't need that text file anymore. So kill file path. Now all we need to do is set the file name to empty. So we can do that with file name equals directory and then open and close parentheses. That clears out the current file name as it loops through. Okay, so that's it. That's it. All we need to do. All right, let's take a look at that. So that's it. That's all we need to do. So let's run that, check for any errors, and let's bring this over here, and we're going to run that. Notice, let's see what we have. We have D2, and we want to replace that with test 6. So in D2, when we run it, it should replace the text 6 here. So let's go ahead and run that code, run it, and update. I need 2 L's in there, not 1. Okay. Then run it again, and D2, perfect. So notice how it changed it. Great. So that's it. So now let's make sure now the file's gone. It killed the file. That's exactly what I want to happen. So good. So now what we need to do, but now we can't run this sync. I don't want to run it every single time, right? I want to run this macro regularly. So how do we do that? Well, we can write another sub. So what I want to do is write sub run sync. So let's write another macro that's going to run it at a specific time. Application, let's run it every, let's say a few seconds for now, but on yours you might want to do it. Application dot, I'm going to click on time. And what is the time? Let's try date add. I'm going to add seconds onto that. I want to add seconds. And how many seconds? Let's just say 3 seconds or something short. And then now. So I want to start it now. And then what do I want to run at that point? I want to run the macro sync from Google. So that's what I want to run. That's all I want to run. And when this finishes up, what I want to do is I want to run it again. In other words, when this macro finishes, I'm going to run the macro here. So run again. Okay, so now when I run, it's going to run automatically. It's going to keep looping through. So now let's take a look. So let's reduce this code. Let's bring in our Google Sheets here. There, now we can see both. We can close this out. We don't need that anymore. So let's say sync test into that, and we're going to wait for that to come in Excel. There it is, sync test. So now we can bring this up so it looks a little bit similar. So now let's test that again. Test again. Now it brought it right back in, and then we're going to sync again. Now sync to Google Sheets, and a perfect. Great. I'm super glad I got to show that to you. This is how you sync from Excel to Google Sheets and from Google Sheets back to Excel. I hope you enjoyed this training. I'm going to include this in the download so you can get it for absolutely free through your email or Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have not yet, check out the Excel mentorship program. I'm going to teach you how to create your own applications and sell them for passive income. That's from myexcelmentor.com. I hope you've liked this training, and thanks so much. We'll see you next week.